Hi, I'm Anders. Welcome to this AI-powered debate. In each episode, I run 3 independent AI agents. 2 debaters who take different roles on today's topic and a host that moderates. Before the debate starts, each debater gets its own private prep file with background materials, arguments, and packed full of information from today's topic. They don't see each other's notes and I don't script their answers. Once the conversation begins, they're free to say whatever they want within their roles. The host agent listens to both sides, decides who speaks next, and tries to ground the conversation in real-world arguments and keep the discussion civil. This whole project is an experiment to see whether AI can surface the strongest argument on a complex topic. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the debate.
Welcome to Ceasefire or Crossroads, our live debate on the Israel-Palestine conflict, focusing on the fragile truce, aid struggles, and paths to peace. I'm your neutral host, here to moderate fairly. Joining us, Pro-Palestine Advocate, championing self-determination and humanitarian relief, and Pro-Israel Advocate, defending security and deterrence against threats. We'll keep it civil, no personal attacks, just ideas, facts, and real impacts. Pro-Palestine Advocate, your opening statement?
Thank you for having me. Excited to discuss this with listeners seeking real answers. I'm the Pro-Palestine Advocate, pushing for Palestinian self-determination, equal rights, and an end to the occupation, siege, and discrimination that's fueled decades of suffering. We need an immediate ceasefire, massive aid surges to Gaza and the West Bank, and accountability for international law violations, while acknowledging Israel's legitimate security fears. The core tension? This October truce promised hope, but UN OCHA reports around 300 Palestinian deaths since, with aid trucks stuck at 150 a week versus 600 needed. True peace demands balancing security with rights, ending the power imbalance that breeds endless conflict. How do we get there?
Pro-Israel Advocate. Over to you for your opening statement.
Thanks for tuning in. Great to be here on Ceasefire or Crossroads, discussing this vital issue. I'm the pro-Israel advocate, defending Israel's right to exist as a secure, Jewish-majority state amid constant threats from Hamas rockets, tunnels, and Hezbollah proxies. True peace requires dismantling these terror networks and restoring deterrence first. Only then can ceasefires hold and diplomacy like the Abraham Accords expand. While I fully acknowledge Palestinian suffering demands a secure path forward. The real tension? UN OCHA shows about 50,000 tons of aid entering Gaza since the October 10th truce. But Hamas diversions and ongoing breaches, like 6 rocket firings last week per security reports, undermine it all. How do we protect civilians without letting threats rebuild for another October 7th?
Thanks. Solid points on Hamas threats and October 7th's horror, which no one should downplay. But that 50,000 tons sounds impressive until you see UN OCHA's November report. Just 120 to 150 trucks a week entering Gaza, far short of 600 needed, leaving 15% of kids malnourished per IPC warnings, and tents flooding in winter rains. Meanwhile, those Hamas breaches are contested. Gaza reports 393 Israeli strikes, killing around 300 since the truce, dwarfing IDF claims of crossings. Deterrence can't mean collective punishment. It requires ending the occupation, fueling radicalization. Abraham Accords are pragmatic, yet Saudi talks demand Palestinian statehood first. Without rights, no lasting regional buy-in. Isn't the real path mutual de-escalation and aid flow now?
I agree. Those aid shortfalls and flooded tents are heartbreaking, with UN OCHA confirming half of Gaza households facing shortages, despite recent surges to 3,000 to 4,000 pallets a day. But the Gaza Health Ministry's 300 deaths and 393 strikes come from a Hamas-run source, contested by IDF reports of targeted ops after 6 confirmed Hamas rocket breaches last week. Deterrence isn't punishment. It's preventing rearmament amid tunnels under homes, per security analyses. Abraham Accords thrive without a Palestinian state, boosting UAE economies and flights. Saudi hints show normalization works when threats recede. Why not pressure Hamas on disarmament and Arab states on refugee hosting for mutual de-escalation?
Heartbreaking is right, but those surges to 3,000 to 4,000 pallets don't match UN OCHA's November 22 tally. Average 145 trucks a week, with 4,000 pallets rejected at crossings. Starving families isn't Hamas's doing alone. Hamas-run stats are partisan, sure, but UN-verified airstrikes confirm around 300 Palestinian deaths post-truce, including 67 kids per UNICEF, versus handful IDF claims. Tunnels are real threats. Yet, occupation checkpoints and raids breed the despair militants exploit. Accords boost economies, but ignore West Bank's record 150 settler attacks this olive season, per OCHA November 6th, displacing thousands. Why prioritise disarmament over halting settlements, sabotaging two states?
Listeners, UN OCHA tallies show about 1,600 aid trucks entering Gaza recently. Progress, but below 500 daily pre-war norms, with disputes over rejections and diversions. Pro-Israel Advocate, thoughts on those West Bank settler reports?
Host, those West Bank settler attacks are tragic and unacceptable. IDF has arrested dozens this year per OHCHR reports, showing Israel cracks down on violence from either side. But OCHA's own November data flags about 8 incidents a day in the West Bank, with most of the 1,000 deaths since October 2023 from IDF raids targeting terror cells in places like Jenin, amid a Hamas-inspired surge post-October 7. On aid, recent OCHA sitreps log 3,000-plus pallets daily offloaded, despite inspections. Rejections prevent arms smuggling, not punish civilians. Settlements are disputed under law, yet Hamas rejectionism and rockets stall two states more than borders. Why not push Palestinian Authority reforms alongside any freeze?
Host, that 1,600 trucks is a start, but still chokes Gaza. OCHA stresses 600 daily minimum to avert famine, with tents flooding now. Agreed, IDF arrests help, but HRW's November 20 report labels forced emptying of 3 West Bank camps as crimes against humanity, displacing 3,200 since last October, per OCHA, including kids, amid 150 settler attacks this harvest. Those 1,000 deaths cut both ways. Raids hit terror cells, yet record olive season violence shows occupation enabling settler impunity, with near-zero prosecutions. Palestinian reforms needed, absolutely. But 5,300 new settler units approved this year, per Peace Now, fragments land first. Why blame rejectionism when settlements tripled post-Oslo?
HRW and OCHA document sharp West Bank rises. Displacements, raids, settler incidents both sides. Shifting to casualties, Gaza totals near 44,000 per ministry reports, contested as militants mixed. Pro-Israel Advocate?
Host, on Gaza casualties, the ministry's 44,000 war total mixes militants and civilians. IDF estimates 70% combatants, hit precisely with warnings and evacuations saving thousands, per recent Times of Israel reports, while post-truce it's around 300 mostly targeted. West Bank displacements like those camps are awful, and settlements fuel tensions. But post-Oslo, both sides stalled. Palestinian rejections at Camp David 2000 and Hamas incitement drive raids, with OCHA noting parallel Palestinian attacks. HRW critiques valid, yet near zero prosecutions cut both ways. Hamas leaders evade justice too. How do we prioritize terror disarmament over endless Oslo blame?
Wikipedia aggregates put war totals around 71,000, Gaza ministry at 44,000 plus, IDF stressing militants. Pro-Palestine Advocate, your take on those ratios and October 7 context?
Host, Wikipedia aggregates vary, but Gaza's ministry tallies over 44,000, with UN OCHA verifying tens of thousands, mostly civilians, around 50 to 70% women and children, including 15,000 kids per UNICEF. October 7th's 1,200 deaths were barbaric and demand Hamas accountability, no question. But Israel's response dwarfs it at 40-1 ratios, with post-truce 300 mostly from strikes per OCHA November reports, not just targeted. Evacuations help, yet ICJ flagged genocide plausibility for disproportionate force ignoring civilian density. IDF's 70% militant claim is contested. International law demands proportionality. Why not independent monitors for casualties and aid to build trust?
ICJ's July advisory deemed occupation unlawful, with genocide case pending. No final ruling yet. Pro-Israel Advocate, response on child casualties and monitors?
Host, child casualties anywhere shatter hearts. UNICEF's numbers are devastating, yet Gaza's tallies remain contested with IDF warnings preceding most strikes to minimize them in Hamas's urban shield tactics. ICJ provisionals urge prevention without halting self-defense or proving genocide intent. Israel complies via aid flows and evacuations, unlike Hamas's October 7th targeting of civilians. Independent monitors for casualties and aid? Smart idea for trust, but extend it to Hamas tunnels and rockets, too. Mutual verification could unlock Phase 2 of the Trump truce. What stops that?
Mutual verification on threats and aid. Intriguing for trust building. Pro-Palestine Advocate on Hamas disarmament as truce prerequisite.
Child casualties, like UNICEF's 67 Gaza kids post-truce, are indefensible. No shields justify bombing tents. ICJ's occupation ruling is binding advisory, urging withdrawal, while provisionals demand aid unimpeded. Yet OCHA logs ongoing blocks rejecting thousands of pallets. Mutual monitors for tunnels, rockets and strikes? Worth exploring for Phase 2 trust. But Hamas disarmament can't prerequisite a truce amid 57-year siege. Polls show their support drops, with hope and rights. Occupation breeds militants. End it alongside verification for real de-escalation. Why demand unilateral disarmament first?
Ceasefire outlines like CFR's note, phased Hamas disarm for progress. Pro-Israel Advocate on sequencing disarm with occupation steps?
Host, sequencing is key. CFR's Trump plan. Phase 1 delivered hostage swaps and aid ramps precisely because it phased disarmament after initial trust. But Phase 2 stalls on Hamas tunnels and rockets persisting post-truce. Polls reflect despair, yet occupation followed 1967 defensive war and Palestinian rejections like Camp David. Unilateral disarm ignores that, breeding threats like October 30th's Rafah tunnel trap, killing an IDF soldier. Mutual monitors build trust, but security first prevents repeats of October 7. Hamas recognizing Israel unlocks it all. Why defend their charter calling for our destruction?
Hamas charter and October 7 intent remain flashpoints. Pro-Palestine Advocate on Gaza's yellow line buffer amid truce tensions?
Yellow line buffer sounds defensive, but Al Jazeera November reports families like the Alis bombed east of it in Beit Lahia. UN OCHA confirms 300 post-truce deaths, mostly from Israeli strikes there. Contested Gaza claims of 393 violations, dwarfing Hamas crossings. Phase 2 stalls make sense if mutual, but sequencing must tackle occupation routes. 1967 defences became indefinite control, fueling rejectionism Hamas exploits. Their charter's toxic, yet born from despair. Polls drop support with viable states. Security via rights balance, not buffers amid aid chokes. Why expand the line instead of monitors now?
Yellow line disputes highlight truce fragility, with reports of advances and strikes both sides. Pro-Israel Advocate, Gaza's future post-Hamas?
Host, Gaza's future shines brightest post-Hamas. A demilitarized zone with PA governance, economic booms like Abraham Accords' UAE model, jobs, tech hubs, and open borders once tunnels and rockets end. The yellow line buffer enforces the October 10 truce against Hamas fire and crossings. As in 6 breaches last week, per security trackers, not expansion for its own sake, saving lives like those IDF warnings in Beit Lahia strikes. Tragedies like the Ali's family gut us, but mutual monitors require Hamas compliance first. Why tolerate their truce violations fueling this cycle?
We've unpacked aid, casualties, West Bank, disarmament, and Gaza futures thoroughly. Time for closings. Pro-Palestine Advocate, core stance, non-negotiable point, hopeful note?
Core stance. Palestinians deserve self-determination, equal rights, and an end to occupation and siege, via immediate ceasefire, aid surges, and law accountability, while addressing Israel's security needs through balanced justice. Non-negotiable. No more collective punishment. Unimpeded aid and monitors now to save lives in Gaza and West Bank. Hopeful vision. A two-state deal on 1967 lines with swaps ends the cycle. Prosperity for both, like accords but inclusive, proving rights secure to everyone. Thanks for listening.
Pro-Israel Advocate, your closing. Core position, non-negotiable point, hopeful note?
Core position. Israel must remain a secure Jewish majority state, dismantling Hamas terror networks and restoring deterrence as prerequisites for lasting ceasefires and diplomacy, acknowledging Palestinian suffering but prioritizing threats like rockets and tunnels that endanger all. Non-negotiable. Hamas must disarm and recognize Israel, per Truce Phase 2. Without it, no sustainable peace. Hopeful note. Abraham Accords show normalization thrives, paving Gaza's economic revival and regional ties once security holds. Let's build that future together. Thanks for joining us.
Powerful closings, security and rights intertwined, with shared calls for verification and hope via deals. We've mapped fragile truces, aid disputes, WB surges, casualty counts, and futures. Thanks, advocates and listeners. Debate on.